The cowboy wanted a virgin bride, but froze when she taught him the first night. Ha ha ha! Luke had always felt most at home on his ranch, where the wind whispered through the tall grass and the sun painted everything in shades of gold. He was a man who knew the land better than most people knew themselves. From dawn until dusk he worked with his hands, fixing fences, tending cattle, and riding the wide open fields that stretched far beyond the horizon. Life was simple, steady, and honest, and that suited him just fine. But when it came to matters of the heart, Luke often found himself uncertain, awkward even. He had grown up in the town of Red Willow, a small community tucked in a valley where everyone knew each other's business, for better or worse.
People respected him because of his work ethic and quiet strength.
He had the kind of presence that could make someone feel safe, like nothing in the world could hurt them while he was around. But despite his outward confidence, Luke carried a private longing, a desire for a companion who understood him, who would share both the quiet moments and the burdens of life on the ranch. Emma, on the other hand, was the daughter of a neighboring farm family. She was gentle, thoughtful, and unassuming, with a curiosity about the world that didn't often fit neatly into the patterns of rural life. Her hands were often busy with chores, milking cows, tending the vegetable garden, or baking fresh bread. But her mind was always wandering, imagining stories of places she had never seen and conversations she had never had. Unlike Luke, she had little experience with men or romantic attention. The few she had met seemed either hurried, brash, or entirely uninterested in understanding the heart of a person. The first time Luke and Emma truly noticed each other was at the annual Red Willow Fall Fair. The town fair was a tradition that marked the changing of the seasons, a place where families displayed their harvest, neighbors shared food, and children ran between stalls with sticky hands and laughing faces. Luke had been helping his father set up the cattle pen for the judging competition when he noticed Emma. She was at her family's stall, arranging jars of honey and baskets of apples with careful precision. Her hair caught the sunlight in a way that made him pause, a soft, golden sheen that seemed almost to glow against the autumn sky. For Luke, the moment was simple but unforgettable. He wasn't usually one to be taken off guard, yet something about the way Emma moved, the quiet focus in her eyes, made him stop mid-step. He felt a flutter of curiosity, strange, unfamiliar, but welcome. Emma, in turn, felt a tug of interest when she saw the cowboy moving among the animals with ease, speaking to them as though they could understand every word. There was a gentleness in him, a careful attentiveness, that reminded her of the rare moments in life when someone truly notices you. Over the next few weeks, their encounters were accidental but increasingly frequent. Luke would find reasons to ride past Emma's farm, offering to help with tasks or simply to exchange greetings. Emma, shy but intrigued, began looking forward to these visits, anticipating his easy smile and the steady, comforting way he spoke. They shared conversations about the weather, livestock, and the subtle rhythm of farm life. Breaths. Slowly they began to reveal little pieces of themselves. Luke speaking of the pride and frustration that came with managing his ranch, Emma sharing her dreams of seeing the world beyond Red Willow. One afternoon, Luke offered to help Emma fix a broken fence that bordered their properties. The work was hard and dirty, and as they hammered posts and tied wires, they laughed at clumsy mistakes and shared light-hearted teasing. In those moments, something more than friendship started to take root, a mutual respect and admiration, wrapped in quiet joy. Luke realized he didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations to feel connected to her. The simple act of being together, sharing work, and exchanging smiles was enough to make his heart feel full. Emma, too, felt a growing sense of comfort around him. She noticed the way Luke's hands moved with care when handling the animals, the way he listened without rushing, and the way his presence seemed to make the world slower, calmer, and safer. She began to trust him in ways she had not trusted anyone before. There was a sincerity in him that felt rare and precious, and though she was inexperienced in matters of romance, She sensed that Luke's interest was genuine and steady, not fleeting or superficial. Their conversations started to grow deeper, moving beyond farm work and daily routines. Luke spoke carefully about his hopes for the future, of having someone to share the ranch with, to build a life alongside. Emma responded with honesty, admitting her own fears and dreams, her longing for companionship, and her cautious optimism that life could hold more than the simple rhythms of farm work. Through these exchanges, they discovered a shared value system: respect, hard work, patience, and the quiet joy of life's small, meaningful moments. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the fields in shades of pink and orange, Luke invited Emma to ride along the ridge with him. The wind was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and grass, and the sky seemed endless above them. As they rode side by side, conversation gave way to a comfortable silence. For the first time, Luke felt a sense of peace he had never known in solitude. He realized that he wanted Emma not just as a companion for work, but as someone who could share his heart, who could understand his vulnerabilities and fears. Emma felt a similar stirring. Sitting beside Luke on the horse, holding the reins loosely, she realized that she trusted him with more than chores or conversations. Round and desperate, there was an emotional intimacy building, a quiet understanding that neither of them had rushed into but had grown naturally from shared time, respect, and attention.
Weeks passed, and the town began to notice the pair together.
Bear. Neighbors whispered, not unkindly, about how Luke and Emma seemed inseparable, always working side by side, always sharing smiles that hinted at a deeper connection.
Luke, however, remained private about his feelings.
He wanted to be certain before expressing anything that could change their friendship. Emma, for her part, was aware of his growing fondness and felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had never been courted in such a thoughtful and respectful way. The attention was new, yet it felt safe. The turning point came one chilly morning when Emma's horse bolted during feeding. Luke acted without hesitation, calming the animal with steady hands and gentle words. Brand. Emma watched him with awe, her heart beating faster, not from fear but from admiration and something warmer, something tender. After the horse was secured, Luke looked at her, his expression open and earnest. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low but firm. Emma nodded, a flutter of anticipation stirring in her chest. Luke admitted that he had feelings for her, feelings that went beyond friendship.
He explained that he admired her patience, her care, and the way she approached life with honesty and courage.
Emma felt a rush of relief and happiness. She confessed that she felt the same way, though she had been unsure how to interpret the attention at first. Breaths. That moment, simple as it was, solidified their bond. It was not a dramatic declaration or a grand gesture. It was honesty, shared in a quiet, meaningful space that reflected the lives they lived and the values they held. From that day forward, Luke and Emma were inseparable. They continued to work on their respective farms, but their interactions took on a new warmth. Meals shared after long days of labor were filled with laughter and gentle teasing. Evening walks became opportunities to discuss dreams, hopes, and fears. And as the town watched, it became clear that this was not a fleeting attraction, but the beginning of something enduring, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and the slow, steady growth of love. Luke, who had always felt most confident in solitude and labor, now discovered a different kind of strength. The courage to open his heart, to show vulnerability, and to embrace the possibility of a shared life. Emma, once cautious and quiet, began to experience life with a sense of connection and joy she had not known before. Together, they navigated the rhythms of rural life, discovering that the ordinary days held extraordinary meaning when shared with someone who truly understood them. By the end of the season, the air turned colder, and the first snow dusted the fields. Luke and Emma stood side by side, looking over the land they both loved. There was a quiet understanding between them. a shared sense of anticipation for the future. They had met in simple, everyday circumstances, but in those moments, they had found something profound: companionship, trust, and the beginnings of love that promised to grow deeper with time. And so, as winter approached Red Willow, Luke felt a sense of contentment he had never known. Life on the ranch remained hard and demanding, but now it was softened by the presence of Emma. For the first time, he believed that love could be gentle, patient, and strong all at once, and that it could thrive in the quiet, honest rhythm of everyday life.
The weeks that followed Luke and Emma's mutual confession were filled with a quiet, steady excitement.
Life on the ranch and the neighboring farm continued as it always had, but something had shifted in the air. Simple moments, a shared meal, a glance across a field, the exchange of a joke, carried new weight and warmth. Both Luke and Emma were learning that love was not only about grand gestures. It was in patience, attention, and the small ways people cared for each other.
Luke began to imagine a future with Emma in ways he had never allowed himself before.
He pictured her beside him in the mornings, helping with the cows, sharing chores, and laughing together over minor disasters like overturned buckets or stubborn horses. He even thought about evenings by the fireplace, the scent of burning wood mingling with fresh-baked bread and the soft sound of Emma humming a tune as she worked. It was a life grounded in the ordinary, yet it felt extraordinary because he would not be alone in it. Emma, meanwhile, found herself noticing things about Luke that she had never fully appreciated before. The way his hands moved with quiet skill. The way his eyes softened when he spoke of things that mattered to him. The way he paused just long enough to listen, not merely hear, what she was saying. She felt a sense of safety and trust around him that allowed her to dream a little bigger, to hope that love could be both patient and steady, even in a world that often seemed harsh. As the fall days shortened and the air grew cooler, Luke and Emma began speaking more openly about marriage. In Red Willow, the idea of young couples marrying in their 20s and 30s was common, especially among families who lived on farms or ranches and relied on shared labor and companionship. For Luke and Emma, the conversations were careful and respectful, with both of them expressing hopes and fears.
One evening, after finishing chores and sharing a simple supper of stew and fresh bread, Luke turned to Emma with a serious expression.
"Emma," he said softly, "I want to ask you something. I want us to be more than just this. I want us to build a life together." He paused, looking for her reaction, and when he saw her eyes shine with understanding, he continued, "I would be honored if you would marry me." Emma felt a flutter in her chest, not from nerves alone, but from happiness and relief. She had hoped for this, yet she had feared it might never come. "Yes, Luke," she said, smiling. "I want that too. I want to share my life with you." There was no dramatic flourish or grand spectacle, just quiet sincerity, the kind that feels like a warm blanket on a cold night. The announcement of their engagement was met with joy by both families. Emma's parents were pleased, seeing that Luke was a hard-working, reliable man who could provide security and companionship. Luke's parents welcomed Emma with open arms, appreciating her kindness, intelligence, and gentle demeanor. The town, accustomed to small celebrations and close-knit relationships, buzzed with excitement for the upcoming wedding, offering congratulations, advice, and practical support. Planning the wedding became a shared adventure, though they both wanted it simple. They chose to marry in the small chapel at the edge of town, a place with wooden pews, stained glass windows, and a quiet charm that reflected their values. The day would be a celebration of family, friends, and the life they intended to build together, rather than an extravagant display of wealth or status. As the wedding day approached, Luke and Emma spent their evenings discussing every detail, from the food to the decorations to the songs that would be played. Yet beneath the practical planning there was an undercurrent of anticipation, especially about the first night together. Neither had much experience with romance, and while both were excited, there was also a sense of nervousness. They trusted each other and respected one another's feelings, but the unknown loomed like a gentle shadow over their joy. Luke found himself reflecting on his own fears quietly, in the privacy of the stables or during solitary rides across the open fields. He wondered if he would be able to live up to expectations, if he could be tender and patient, if he could understand Emma's needs when the moment came. For all his confidence in work and life, the idea of intimate closeness made him feel vulnerable, in a way he had never experienced. Emma, too, had her own thoughts. She worried about hurting Luke unintentionally, about moving too fast or not knowing what to do. She wanted the night to be a shared experience, one of trust and connection, not of pressure or confusion. She reflected on the years she had spent learning about kindness, patience, and listening to others, realizing that those skills would guide her in ways she had not expected. Despite the nervousness, both were committed to one another. Their trust in each other became their guiding principle. Luke found reassurance in Emma's gentle confidence and willingness to communicate. Emma found comfort in Luke's honesty and quiet attentiveness. It was a partnership that had been tested not by trials but by time spent together, working side by side, learning about each other, and building a foundation of respect and care. The wedding day itself arrived like a soft, golden sunrise. Early morning mist hovered over the fields, and the smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee drifted from Emma's family kitchen. Neighbors came to help with last-minute preparations. Children ran about carrying flowers, and a sense of excitement hung over Red Willow. Luke polished his boots until they shone and straightened his jacket repeatedly, nerves mixing with anticipation. Emma spent the morning with her family, laughter and chatter blending with moments of quiet reflection, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her dress and veil. When the ceremony began, everything seemed to slow down. The chapel was filled with sunlight, casting warm colors across the wooden pews. Luke waited at the altar, heart pounding, hands clasped tightly. Emma entered, moving gracefully yet nervously down the aisle, her eyes meeting his, both of them smiling softly. In that moment, all their fears, hopes, and dreams converged into a shared understanding. They were choosing each other fully and wholeheartedly. The ceremony was simple, but every word carried weight. Vows were spoken with sincerity, promises made with care, and rings exchanged as symbols of commitment and trust. There was laughter, tears, and applause from friends and family. By the time they kissed, it was not just a formality. It was the culmination of weeks, months, and years of growing connection, of learning to trust and respect one another. After the ceremony, the couple and their guests moved to a nearby barn for the reception. The space was decorated with strings of lights, simple wildflowers, and long wooden tables filled with food made by neighbors. Music played softly, children ran freely, and the air was alive with the sense of community and celebration. Luke and Emma danced slowly, sometimes laughing at missteps, sometimes holding each other tightly in moments of quiet connection. The barn was full of warmth, laughter, and the promise of a life shared, simple and honest. As night fell, the time came for them to leave for their first night together. The walk to the small cottage Luke had prepared was quiet, filled with unspoken anticipation. Emma's hand rested lightly in his, a gesture of both comfort and reassurance. They moved slowly, savoring the final moments of the day as husband and wife, aware that the night ahead held both excitement and uncertainty. Entering the cottage, they paused, looking around at the space they would now share privately. Luke felt a nervous tension tighten in his chest, a mixture of excitement and fear of the unknown. Emma noticed it immediately, though she did not judge or comment. Instead, she smiled gently, took his hand, and whispered words of reassurance. "We'll learn together," she said. There's no rush, no expectation. That simple statement calmed him more than he could have imagined. Luke realized that love was not about performance or knowledge. It was about patience, communication and trust. Emma, in turn, felt relief and confidence. They had spent months building a foundation of mutual respect and understanding, and now it would guide them through this next step. The night ahead was not one of hurried passion or dramatics. It was a shared journey of learning and connection. They spoke softly, laughed at small, awkward moments, and explored the meaning of intimacy in ways neither had anticipated. Luke discovered that vulnerability could be a source of strength, and Emma learned that patience and empathy were gifts that could guide them both. By the end of the night, they felt closer than ever. Their hearts were connected not only through love but through trust, understanding, and the shared experience of facing the unknown together. It was a night that would remain with them forever, not for dramatic events or grand gestures, but for the quiet, profound connection they had discovered in each other. In the following days, life returned to its rhythm of work, chores, and community life. But everything had changed. Luke and Emma carried with them the knowledge that they had faced vulnerability together and come through with a stronger bond. Their love was grounded in patience, respect, and the simple joys of everyday life. And as the winter winds began to sweep across Red Willow, the couple felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, side by side. The cottage Luke had prepared for their first night together was quiet and warm, with soft lamplight casting gentle shadows on the wooden walls. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves in a way that seemed to mimic the nervous excitement stirring in both of them. Luke took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. He had spent hours preparing everything: the small bed with clean linens, a warm fire, and a simple dinner ready should Emma be hungry. But none of these details could calm the feelings of uncertainty that gnawed at him. Emma, noticing the faint tension in his posture, stepped closer. She took his hand gently in hers and smiled, her eyes reflecting both warmth and understanding. He glances around in dismay. "Luke," she said softly, "we don't have to rush. Tonight is about being together, not doing anything perfectly." "We can take it slow." Her voice carried reassurance, and Luke felt some of his fear melt away. He nodded, grateful for her patience and her quiet confidence. They sat together by the fire, sipping warm tea that Luke had prepared. The room was filled with a comforting silence, broken only by the occasional crackle of burning wood. Luke looked at Emma and realized how lucky he was. Not because she was new or inexperienced, but because she had the wisdom to guide him through this delicate moment with kindness. He felt a mix of pride, relief, and nervous anticipation. As they spoke about their day, their families, and even small memories from childhood, the atmosphere became more relaxed. Luke laughed at a story Emma told about a runaway calf, and she giggled at his exaggerated expressions. The humor eased the tension, reminding them both that love was not just about serious moments. It was also about shared joy and comfort. After a while, Emma suggested they take a walk outside. The night was cool, and the sky sparkled with stars. Luke offered his arm, and she took it lightly, leaning into him in a way that felt both natural and comforting. As they walked through the small garden behind the cottage, the scent of earth and flowers mingled with the crisp night air. Luke realized that the simple act of being close, holding her hand, and walking side by side brought him more comfort than any preparation could. Returning to the cottage, they paused at the doorway. Luke looked at Emma, his chest tightening with nervousness. He had imagined this moment countless times, yet the reality was more daunting than he had expected.
Emma, sensing his hesitation, stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on his chest.
"Luke," she whispered, "we can go as slowly as you need. There's nothing we have to rush through. We just need to be honest with each other." Her words were like a gentle balm to his nerves. He nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude and affection.
"Thank you, Emma," he replied softly.
I want to do this right. I want us to be comfortable and happy together.
Emma smiled, squeezing his hand, and they moved into the small sitting area, taking a moment to simply be in each other's presence. Luke realized that the most important part of this night was not any specific act, but the connection they shared, the trust, the patience, and the willingness to be vulnerable. He had spent so much of his life focusing on work, routines, and appearances that he had never truly faced the depth of emotional intimacy. Now, with Emma beside him, he felt the weight lift, replaced by a sense of closeness that was both exhilarating and grounding. They talked quietly, discussing their hopes for the future, their fears, and the little things that made them happy. Emma shared her dreams of seeing new places someday, while Luke spoke of his desire to create a life filled with care, hard work, and mutual respect. Each story, each confession, deepened their bond, reminding them that love was built not on grand gestures but on honesty and understanding.
After some time, Luke suggested they sit on the small rug near the fireplace.
They sat close, shoulders touching, sharing the warmth of the fire.
Luke felt his nervousness return, but this time it was tempered by the calm assurance in Emma's eyes.
He realized that he didn't have to have all the answers or perform perfectly. They were learning together, and that was enough. Emma leaned her head gently on his shoulder, and he rested his cheek against hers. In that quiet moment, they simply existed together, feeling the presence of the other, the warmth and the trust that had grown over months of shared time. Luke was amazed at how something so simple, being close, feeling her heartbeat, holding her hand, could bring such profound comfort.
As the evening progressed, Emma suggested they read a story together, something light and comforting.
Luke agreed, and they chose a small book of folk tales from the region.
Sitting together, they read aloud, occasionally laughing at funny passages and pausing to comment on the lessons in the stories.
The simplicity of the activity reinforced the idea that intimacy was not about rushing into physical closeness, but about enjoying shared experiences and building trust. Eventually, they grew quiet, the stories left unread as they focused on each other. Luke felt his nervousness resurface, but Emma's gentle guidance reminded him that it was okay to feel vulnerable.
She encouraged him to express his thoughts and feelings, reassuring him that nothing needed to be forced or hurried.
Luke felt a wave of relief, realizing that the first night together could be an exploration of emotions and trust, not a test of skill or experience. They held hands, exploring small gestures of closeness, touching, holding, leaning into one another, and exchanging whispered words of comfort. Each movement was tentative at first, but gradually they found a rhythm that felt natural. Luke discovered that being present, listening, and responding to Emma's signals mattered far more than any preconceived notion of what should happen. Emma, in turn, appreciated his patience, his attentiveness, and the way he prioritized her comfort above all else. Hours passed with gentle conversation, quiet laughter, and moments of comfortable silence. Luke realized that he was learning as much about himself as he was about Emma. He discovered the power of vulnerability, the importance of patience, and the joy of emotional closeness. Emma felt a similar awakening, gaining confidence in expressing her feelings and understanding that intimacy was about mutual respect, trust, and shared experience, rather than following any prescribed rules. By the late hours of the night, they settled on the small bed together, holding each other closely. The nervousness that had marked the evening was replaced with a quiet contentment. Luke felt a profound sense of gratitude for Emma's guidance, understanding, and trust. Emma, in turn, felt secure and cherished, knowing that they had navigated this first night with patience, love, and respect. As they drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, both realized that this night would be remembered not for any dramatic or sensational moment, but for the emotional connection they had deepened. It was a night of learning, trust, and mutual care, a foundation upon which their future would be built. In the days that followed, the couple reflected on that night often, appreciating the lessons they had learned, They discovered that emotional intimacy and trust could create a bond stronger than any external circumstance. Life on the ranch continued. Chores remained, and the world outside their cottage carried on as usual. But for Luke and Emma, everything had subtly shifted. They had discovered the power of patience, understanding, and the simple joy of being present with someone they loved. Luke returned to his work with renewed energy, often stealing glances at Emma as she moved about her tasks. He found that even in the midst of hard labor, thoughts of her brought comfort and motivation. Emma, too, found herself more confident, her heart filled with warmth and security, knowing that their relationship was rooted in respect and care rather than expectations or pressure. The first night had taught them that love was an ongoing journey, one that required attention, patience, and openness.
It was not a destination, but a path that they would continue to walk together.
They learned that intimacy was not about perfection, but about honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to grow together. Weeks later, as winter approached Red Willow, the couple often reminisced quietly about that night. They laughed at their initial nervousness and awkwardness, and they marveled at how far they had come. The experience became a cornerstone of their relationship, a reminder that true connection was built through patience, understanding, and the willingness to face the unknown together. Luke and Emma's first night together had been more than just a physical milestone. It had been an emotional awakening. They had discovered that love was not a single act, but a series of choices, small and meaningful, that reinforced trust and connection. The night had strengthened their bond, deepened their understanding of each other, and set the stage for a lifetime of shared experiences, respect, and mutual care. As they moved forward in their marriage, both carried the lessons of that night in their hearts. They approached challenges with patience, celebrated small victories together, and nurtured their love with kindness and attention. Luke realized that the courage to be vulnerable had made him stronger, and Emma understood that trust and openness could create a love that endured. Together, they continued to explore the rhythm of life on the ranch and beyond, confident that whatever obstacles they faced, they would face them side by side. And though the first night remained a quiet, private memory, it became the foundation upon which they built a partnership, defined not by expectations, but by love, trust, and the simple joy of sharing life together. The morning after their first night together was quiet and tender. Sunlight streamed gently through the cottage window, casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. Luke stirred first, feeling the familiar comfort of Emma's presence beside him. He watched her sleep for a moment, noting the calm rise and fall of her breathing, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the first time in his life, he had someone who understood him completely, not just his work, but his heart, his fears, and his dreams. Emma woke slowly, smiling as she realized Luke was watching her. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice soft and full of warmth.
Luke returned the smile, reaching for her hand and giving it a gentle squeeze.
Neither of them needed words. The comfort of shared presence said everything that needed to be said. Breakfast was a quiet affair, filled with laughter and gentle teasing. They talked about their plans for the day, about chores on the ranch, and about small, everyday details that had become meaningful when shared together. It was in these ordinary moments that Luke and Emma discovered the depth of their connection. Love, they realized, was not only found in grand gestures or dramatic events. It was found in mornings like this, in shared meals, and in the simple rhythm of life lived together. The days that followed blended seamlessly into the rhythm of farm life, but with a new sense of purpose and joy.
Luke and Emma worked side by side, tending to animals, repairing fences, and caring for crops.
Even in the midst of demanding labor, there was laughter and playful teasing, small moments that made the work feel lighter and more meaningful. They learned each other's routines, discovering ways to support one another in both the big tasks and the small.
Luke, who had always been confident in his ability to manage the ranch, now found that his greatest satisfaction came from sharing responsibilities with Emma.
He noticed the way she anticipated the needs of the animals, the careful attention she paid to details, and the quiet joy she brought to the work. Emma, in turn, admired Luke's strength, patience, and the way he remained calm under pressure. Together, they discovered that partnership was more than simply working side by side. It was a blend of respect, trust, and mutual care that made both of their lives richer. Their evenings were spent in similar simplicity and warmth. After chores, they would sit by the fireplace, sometimes reading together, sometimes talking quietly about the day. On occasion, they would share a long walk under the stars, the cool night air filled with the sounds of the countryside. These walks became a time for reflection, for planning, and for simply enjoying each other's company. Luke began to notice the little details, the curve of Emma's smile, the warmth of her hand in his, the sparkle in her eyes when she laughed. Each observation deepened his affection for her. Emma, too, found her love for Luke growing stronger every day. She appreciated his thoughtfulness, his ability to listen without judgment, and the way he made her feel both safe and valued. She realized that she could trust him completely, not only with her heart but with the life they were building together. Their bond was no longer just about attraction or excitement. It had become a foundation of respect, patience, and shared experience. As winter settled over Red Willow, Luke and Emma found ways to enjoy the season together. They would gather firewood, cook hearty meals, and plan small projects around the ranch. Snow blanketed the fields, and the couple often paused to watch the quiet beauty of the world around them. Luke would take Emma for rides through the snow-covered landscape, the wind biting at their faces but the warmth of each other's presence making them forget the cold. These simple pleasures became treasured moments, reinforcing their connection and reminding them that love thrived in both ordinary and extraordinary circumstances. The couple also faced challenges, as all young married couples do. Livestock sometimes fell ill, fences broke in storms, and harsh weather made farm work grueling. Yet through each difficulty they leaned on one another, combining strength, patience, and ingenuity to solve problems. Luke learned that vulnerability did not make him weak. Admitting when he needed help and accepting Emma's assistance strengthened their partnership. Emma discovered her own resilience, realizing that she could face challenges with confidence and grace when supported by someone she trusted. Friends and neighbors often commented on the harmony of their relationship. People admired the way Luke and Emma worked together, not only for the efficiency of their labor but for the genuine warmth that seemed to surround them. There was a visible ease in their interactions, a gentle understanding that spoke of months of patience, communication, and growing trust. The couple did not need to boast or perform. Their actions and care for one another were enough to show the depth of their love. One evening, as the wind howled outside and snow fell steadily, Luke and Emma sat by the fireplace, sharing stories of their childhoods. Luke spoke of his father teaching him to ride horses and his mother showing him how to care for animals with patience and respect. Emma shared memories of helping her family with harvests and the simple joys of growing up in a close-knit community. They laughed at minor misadventures, shared lessons they had learned, and reflected on the values that had shaped them. In these moments, they realized that their love was strengthened not only by attraction, but by a shared understanding of life, work, and family. During the long winter nights, they also focused on preparing for the future. Luke and Emma discussed plans for expanding the farm, saving for improvements, and even dreaming about a family of their own. Their conversations were always rooted in practicality, tempered by shared values and mutual respect. They discovered that partnership meant not only enjoying the present, but planning together, making decisions as a team and supporting each other's dreams. Evenings often ended with quiet reflection. Luke would sometimes hold Emma close, whispering gentle words of appreciation for her patience, kindness, and the joy she brought into his life. Emma would rest her head on his shoulder, feeling the comfort of his presence and the security of their shared life. These quiet rituals became a cornerstone of their marriage, moments that reinforced their bond and reminded them that love was built on both large gestures and small, consistent acts of care. Spring eventually arrived, melting the snow and bringing new life to the fields. The couple eagerly welcomed the season, tending to newly sprouting crops and caring for animals as new births occurred. Luke and Emma approached the work with a renewed sense of energy and optimism, understanding that each day offered opportunities to grow together, both as individuals and as partners. They continued to strengthen their relationship, discovering new joys in shared successes and mutual support. Through the seasons, the couple also found time for moments of leisure and simple pleasure. They would explore the countryside on horseback, enjoy picnics in the fields, and spend quiet evenings reading or sharing stories by the fire. These moments were filled with laughter, gentle teasing, and deep conversation, reinforcing the foundation of trust and understanding that had begun months earlier. Luke and Emma discovered that love was not only about surviving challenges together, but also about celebrating life's small joys and creating lasting memories. Over time, they became more confident in their emotional and physical intimacy. Their early nervousness gave way to a natural, effortless closeness. Luke learned to express his affection openly, and Emma became more comfortable communicating her needs and desires. They discovered that love was an ongoing learning process, one that required attention, patience, and the willingness to adapt to each other's rhythms. The couple also found strength in community. Friends and neighbors often sought their advice or invited them to help with farm projects, celebrations, or shared meals. Luke and Emma were generous with their time and energy, recognizing that relationships extended beyond the immediate household. Their reputation as a kind, reliable, and harmonious couple spread through Red Willow, further strengthening their connection to the town and their sense of purpose. As the years passed, Luke and Emma's bond continued to deepen. They faced challenges and hardships as life on a farm always demanded resilience, but they approached each difficulty with patience, communication, and shared determination. The love that had begun with gentle trust and understanding matured into a partnership of profound depth. Luke often reflected on the first night, realizing that the lessons of patience, honesty, and vulnerability had set the tone for a lifetime of happiness. Emma, too, appreciated the journey they had taken together, understanding that love was not about perfection but about constant care, attention, and growth. Even small disagreements were handled with respect and consideration. Instead of allowing frustration to build, they learned to discuss problems calmly, listen to each other's perspectives, and find solutions that strengthened their partnership. These moments of challenge reinforced their bond, teaching them that love was not merely an emotion but a choice, a commitment to act with care and understanding every day. Over time, Luke and Emma also began to dream about expanding their family.
They spoke of children with excitement and anticipation, imagining a household filled with laughter, curiosity, and learning. They discussed parenting together, planning how they could provide both security and freedom for their future children.
Their shared vision strengthened their love as they understood that building a family required cooperation, patience, and mutual respect.
Through all of this, their love remained rooted in simple truths: honesty, communication, patience, and kindness.
The lessons of the first night, the months of courtship, and the early days of marriage became guiding principles for their life together. They learned that true intimacy was not only physical but emotional, and that love thrived in the spaces between words, gestures, and shared experiences. As the seasons continued to change, Luke and Emma found joy in the ordinary death. They celebrated small victories, an abundant harvest, a healthy calf, a repair done well, and shared quiet moments of reflection, warmth, and laughter. Their relationship had grown stronger because it was based on shared effort, trust, and respect. Life was not always easy, but it was rich with meaning, and they faced it together, side by side. Past, the memory of their first night remained a cherished moment, not for its novelty, but for what it represented: trust, patience, and the beginning of a life lived fully and honestly together. Luke often thought back to that evening and realized how far they had come, not just in physical closeness, but in emotional understanding. Emma, too, reflected on the journey, feeling grateful for a partnership that had taught her the meaning of love, respect, and shared life. Together, Luke and Emma built a life filled with quiet beauty and steady joy. They faced challenges, celebrated successes, and nurtured a love that grew deeper with each passing day. They had learned that the essence of marriage was not in grand gestures, but in patience, communication, shared work, and unwavering care for one another. Their story was not one of drama or perfection, but of two people discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary, and the richness of a life shared in trust and love. And so, in the fields of red willow under the changing seasons and the endless sky, Luke and Emma continued their journey together. Side by side, hand in hand, they faced each day with gratitude, laughter, and devotion. They had begun as two individuals seeking connection, and over time they had become partners in every sense of the word. Their love was steady, resilient, and true, a testament to patience, understanding, and the power of a heart opened fully to another.